You've confirmed with the buyer the pertinent information you gained during pre-call planning, and you've learned additional relevant facts about the buyer's business, including any strategic objectives the buyer is pursuing that may be related to the solutions you can provide. Now it's time to identify barriers or suboptimal conditions that are adversely affecting the buyer or the buyer's business. In other words, it's time to find the problem you can fix. Now bear in mind, if you're calling on a qualified candidate, you should have some idea of how you can help the buyer. However, you don't want your assumptions to prevent you from uncovering a problem that the buyer has that you didn't think of already. The easiest way to accomplish this is simply ask open-ended questions in areas related to the type of solutions you can provide. Open-ended questions have the advantage of letting buyers bring up what's important to them rather than having you search for it through closed-ended questions. It's analogous to learning someone's favorite color. You could ask a series of closed-ended questions like, is it blue? Is it black? Until you hit the right color. Or you could simply ask, what's your favorite color? Using open-ended questions can save you a lot of time and trouble. Start off by asking questions tied to higher-level concerns, like achieving strategic objectives. In addition to keeping the focus of the sales call relevant to the buyer, you may also identify ways you can help the buyer that you didn't think of during qualifying or pre-call planning. And if you can tie your solution to helping your customers achieve one or more strategic objectives, you've got a better shot at getting the business. If the buyer's responses aren't helpful, you can move to more direct, closed-ended questions. Using our previous example, Natalie might ask the school superintendent something general like, how are you identifying areas where you can reduce your operating expenses? Or perhaps something more specific like, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had managing your material safety data sheets? Or, have you ever had trouble maintaining compliance with OSHA's requirements for how material safety data sheets are managed? Most of the time, the answers to these sorts of questions deal with symptoms or consequences of problems and not the real problem, or in other words, the thing the salesperson can fix. For example, the superintendent might reply, our biggest problem is making sure each of our schools has current copies of the MSDS documents they need to keep on premise. While the buyer believes his problem is ensuring each school has the appropriate documents, the true problem is whatever is keeping him from accomplishing that objective. At this point, the salesperson needs to drill down a little bit more in order to bring to the surface the true cause of what the buyer describes of as his problem. And this can be done with some of the most basic investigative questions. The who, what, why, and how often sort of questions. In this scenario, Natalie could ask the buyer, why is that? Or perhaps more grammatically correct, what's keeping you from making sure all the schools have the MSDS documents they need? I once had a student who was having trouble keeping up with material we covered in a class that met at 8 a.m. He told me his problem was always being 20 minutes late to class. I suggested to him that being late to class was a symptom and his problem was not waking up 20 minutes earlier. He adjusted his alarm clock and voila, he was never late again. Here are some of the other examples of symptoms or consequences of problems for which you would need to drill down to identify the underlying cause. People in the office don't like using the copy machine. The software doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. Our costs are too high. Hearing these sorts of statements, you should be asking questions like, who's affected? What don't they like about it? What about the software isn't working? Why are your costs too high? It may also be helpful to ask how often the problem occurs. If the problem occurs daily, the buyer may be more motivated to find a solution, and you'll want to continue developing that need. On the other hand, if the problem occurs once in a blue moon, you may want to move on to a different problem. Generally speaking, the more often the problem occurs, the more likely the buyer will want to fix it. So to recap, ask open-ended questions in areas related to solutions you can provide that allow the buyer to talk freely about the challenges they consider to be the most important. Make sure to identify the true cause of what the buyers often identify as problems. Ask simple who, what, and why questions to help you identify the thing that you can fix with your solutions. When appropriate, ask how often does that problem occur. This will help you and the buyer assess the urgency of finding a solution. Once you and the buyer have identified the source of the problem, or in other words, the thing that you fix, you need to assess the severity of the problem. To do that, you'll need to ask the buyer about the consequences of the problem currently and those that will result if the problem isn't fixed.